Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances, all goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all for joining His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj's daily class. Today, Maharaj is going to enlighten us with Srimad Bhagavatam. We are continuing the series of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 15th chapter, verse number 39. Chapter name is Pandavas Retired Timely. Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. You can please take over, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, glories to Srila Prabhupada. My obeisances to all devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Madhurayam tata vrajram surasena patim tataham prajapayam nirupyaistim agnin apibad ishvaraha. Then he posted Braj, the son of Aniruddha, grandson of Lord Krishna, as Mathura, as the king of Surasena. Afterwards, Maharaj Yudhisthira performed a Prajapatya sacrifice and placed in himself the fire for quitting household life. Purport. Maharaj Yudhisthira, after placing Maharaj Parikshit on the imperial throne of Hastinapur, and after posting Braj, the great-grandson of Lord Krishna, as the king of Mathura, accepted the renounced order of life. The system of 4 orders of life and 4 castes in terms of quality and work, known as Varnashram Dharma, is the beginning of real human life. And Maharaj Yudhisthira, as a protector of this system of human activities, timely retired from active life as a sannyasi, handling over the charge of the administration to a trained prince, Maharaj Parikshit. The scientific system of Varnashram Dharma divides human life into 4 divisions of occupations and 4 orders of life. The 4 orders of life as Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas are to be followed by all, irrespective of the occupational division. Modern politicians do not wish to retire from active life, even if they are old enough. But Yudhisthira Maharaj, as an ideal king, voluntarily retired from active administrative life to prepare himself for the next life. Everyone's life must be arranged that at the last stage of life, say at least the last 15 to 20 years prior to death, can be absolutely devoted to devotional service of the Lord to attain the highest perfection of life. It is really foolishness to engage oneself all the days of one's life in material enjoyment and fruitive activities, because as long as the mind remains absorbed in fruitive activities for material enjoyment, there's no chance of getting out of conditioned life or material bondage. No one should follow the suicidal policy of neglecting one's superior task of attaining the highest perfection of life, namely going back home, back to Godhead. Om Gyan Timidandasya Gyanajana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Staptitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Pasyatya Dehi Satarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhischa Vipa Sindhu Peevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita Chaturvarnya Maya Srista Guna Karma Vibhagasaha that the four orders of life, Chaturvarnya, were created by me, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra, which make up the social system of a stable and progressive human society. There are persons who have characteristics and a particular nature that is aligned with one of these particular qualities or characteristics. It's called swadharma. It's actually what it means is one's material tendencies, which are there at birth. But in Kali Yuga, because of the degradation of the age, people no longer can understand their characteristics, and therefore training and education need to be applied in order to bring it to the forefront. As it says that Kalo Sudra Sambhavan, in this age, people are characterized at birth as being Sudra, or less actually. But Sudra is the term that's given in the scripture, which means that even if one has Brahminical tendencies, because these tendencies are there at the time of birth, but they are covered by the fallen age of Kali. And people don't really know. Of course, the perverted system is the caste system. The caste system is that according to one's birth in a particular family, one is designated accordingly. The tendency for that particular varna coming by birth is there, but actually the system means identification, application, and engagement, which means that one should work according to that one's swadharma in a material way in order to be part of the collective human society, which is coordinated by these four divisions of social order. So that's the perfect human society. People work as brahmanas or serve as brahmanas for society. Others take the position of kshatriya. The third division would be the Vaishya, and the last would be Sudra. Using the analogy of the human body, the Brahmins are the head, the Kshatriyas are the arms, the Vaishyas are the belly, and the Sudras are the leg. So a wholesome human form, body, contains these four, and all are necessary. But the most important, of course, is the Brahmins. One can somehow get on in life as a human body without the legs or the arms, but the belly and the head have to be there. Otherwise, there is a dead body. Of course, all four are necessary. But the Brahmins are the most important because they give direction to society. So these four arrows of life, Krishna says, I created them. And then you have the four divisions, which you call Vana and Ashrama, that for training in society, in order for the occupations, there are four categories of lifestyle. There are those who are celebrate students, they're called brahmacharya. Those who live in family life, they are called grihastha. Those who retire from family and prepare themselves to go back to Godhead and become relieved of all family responsibilities are called vanaprastha. And then you have the division, the last one is sannyas, complete renounced life. So this ideal system, and Srila Prabhupada talked about this constantly. You can practically hear every one of his lectures. He mentions in some way the Varnashram system. But when Prabhupada was developing his movement, he began by saying, because society in Kali Yuga is too topsy-turvy, there is no way we can actually organize the social body in such a way. But then in 1974, after preaching for about 7 years, 8 years in his movement, he saw the need for developing the Vana part of our system in Krishna consciousness. He had geared and focused his teachings on developing a class of Brahmanas without any emphasis on the other three Varnas. Of course, Sudras don't really need any kind of training, but Kshatriyas and Vaishyas need education and training in order to bring out their innate qualities according to that particular Varna. So Prabhupada started to speak about the need for this Daivi Varnashram within the Krishna conscious society. He said we can develop it and then we can teach the rest of the world based on that. And that was Prabhupada's vision. So each one of these four make up the social and spiritual position and activities of the human culture. Now, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us a formula, Gopir Bhatir Patikamalayur, Dasa Dasa Anudas. He says, I'm not a brahmachari, I'm not a grihastha, I'm not a vaishya, I'm not a sudra, I'm not a brahman, not a kshatriya, I'm not a vaishya, I'm not sudra. What am I? I am the servant of the servant of the servant of the damsels of Vraj. So he pretty much understood that he wanted to make a point that the living entity in the material world, his real identity is Jiver Surbai Krishnera Nityadas. That all living entities are ultimately servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is our identity, and that is our spiritual practice. Based on that practice, we bring out that identity. But then again, for the sake of developing a social system which is supportive of the spiritual activities of the living entity, he wanted to make these divisions within our society so people could work accordingly and produce what we say effectively according to their natural position. And then Prabhupada started to talk about that, and he says this system can only be developed in our farm communities. It cannot be done in the cities or any other place. The farm communities are the foundation for developing Varnashram. And so, but these 8 divisions are actually the orders and occupations of a human society like that. Sometimes we see there is people who are not within a designated ashram who practice Krishna consciousness, such as men and women who are not married but are not following the principles of brahmacharya or brahmacharini, as brahmacharini is an adaptation based on the Western culture that was allowed by Srila Prabhupada. It's the counterpart or of the brahmachari aspect of the spiritual aspect or ashram aspect of an ashram. And there are people who are single, but they don't have any, because brahmachari and brahmacharini means to work under the guidance of the spiritual master and perform activities within the culture of a organized lifestyle. That usually means to live in the temple or to live in a community of devotees and not separate outside like that, and not be married at the same time. So Prabhupada shot that idea down, although still we find in our society that is very much prominent because people somehow cannot graciously, or what we say intelligently, enter into the Grihastha ashram, for there are many reasons why there is that problem there. For whatever reasons, maybe it's because of Kali Yuga. And at the same time, they are not living within the community and temple environment. And so they are practicing Krishna consciousness, and that is allowable, but they don't fit into any one of these four categories by definition. And so it's incumbent upon those persons to actually designate their ashram, because ashram means a place of spiritual cultivation. And there's no fifth order. There's only these four here. Vanaprastha in our Krishna conscious society has not been given much emphasis or understanding. The Vedic term actually means vana means forest, and prastha means dweller, one who dwells in the forest. So we are not encouraging people to leave their home and then go into the forest. In fact, in Kali Yuga, it's impossible for people to accept that lifestyle, although there are a few that are doing it. But Prabhupada's understanding of Vanaprastha was not given much emphasis, although he did mention that Vanaprastha really means once you retire from family life, you go to live in a holy place and you serve the deity in that holy place, and then prepare yourself for leaving the world. And the men can take sannyas, and the women can live, put on the color white, which means no more family responsibilities, and live in that environment by serving the deity, serving the devotees in a spiritual community or in a temple. That was Prabhupada's indication of what is Vanaprastha, because no one can go to the forest in this age. It's difficult. And no one's prepared for such lifestyle anyway. So this is the natural order by Krishna. And we see here that Maharaj Yudhisthira, he's not an irresponsible king. He's moving out of his post, but he also wants to make sure that the system goes on in the best possible way by designating those who are qualified to take up certain positions once he has left, like that. The downside of the particular system is that people who are in grihastha life, rather than retiring after all of grihastha responsibilities are taken care of, such as the children are grown up and they're married, and there is no more need actually to live in that environment. And then in order to focus completely on spiritual life and prepare to go back home, back to Godhead, a system has been developed where after that certain age where there is no more responsibility, then one moves towards retirement and then ultimately complete renunciation. So human life, as it's mentioned in the scriptures and by the Lord himself, is to ultimately go prepare oneself to go back home, back to Godhead. That is the goal of human life, not to stay here in this material world all the way up to the time of death trying to enjoy material activities. It's very, what we say, what's the word? Lamentable when you see people who are very elderly, they're still trying to enjoy this material world. They do the same thing that they did when they were young, or trying to do it. Well, because the desire is still there. The desire for sense gratification, unless it's purified through the process of devotional service, and one develops a desire to serve the Lord and go back home, back to Godhead, that desire remains all the way up to the time of death. There's a nice pastime story in the scriptures where King Akbar was speaking to his assistant Birbal, and he was saying that, yes, I think that even when one becomes very old, there is no more desire for sexual enjoyment. Birbal counteracted and disagreed with him. He said, no, this is not true. It goes up all the way to the very fag end of life. Even though one is unable to perform the activities, still that desire remains. Akbar was a little taken aback, and Birbal said, I'll prove it to you, my dear king. There is a very dedicated citizen within your kingdom. He is very much aligned with you. He has great regard for you, and he is now on his deathbed. Soon he will be leaving the body. Tomorrow you come to visit him, and you bring your young daughter with you. So Akbar came into the area where the man was laying in bed, and along with his daughter, they were walking side by side. And then Birbal said, as you go in, watch the man's eyes when you appear in. And as soon as he came, the man's eyes went to the young girl, not to the king, although he had great regard for the king. Birbal showed that even at the very fag end of life, these desires for material enjoyment still remain within the consciousness of the living entity. And therefore, that will perpetuate them into another body at the time of death. Because these desires will manifest in the form of consciousness at the time of leaving the body. As Krishna says, Yam yam vapis param bhavam tattva antya kalevaram tam tam ivaiti kotaya sadasa bhava bhavitaha. Whatever you think of at the time of death, that state of consciousness, or that state of destination based on consciousness, will manifest. We have the example how in the Srimad Bhagavatam of Ajamil, Ajamil, in his whole life, after he gave up his spiritual practice, he became a #1 debauch. And he was always engaged in sinful activities to support his wife, which was a prostitute. And it says that when he was leaving the body, he was 88 years old, and he had a child that was 3 years old. So he was still active in producing children at the age of 86 or 85 years old. And so we see that's an example of how even if one has the capacity, one will continue in that way. Of course, as the time goes on, the desire remains, but the instruments to carry out the desire are becoming less and weaker like that. And but we see that there, as Prabhupada says, modern politicians do not wish to retire from active life. Even though they're old enough, people don't want to retire from family life, even though there is no more family responsibilities. And they simply want to, live out their life so they can enjoy as much sense gratification or some false prestige as being a politician, even though they're not, what we say, qualified anymore. They don't want to voluntarily retire. So human life is in stages. You try to understand that principle, that as we go through different stages in life, we perform activities according to those different stages, which is meant to lead us to complete renunciation of all material activities and complete focus upon the activities of devotional service to the Supreme Lord. The division of sannyas allows one to do that at an earlier stage of life. Of course, according to the Vedic system, sannyas is not given till the age of 50. When Srila Prabhupada was giving sannyas to his fledgling disciples who were in the 20s and 30s, he was criticized for that. And Prabhupada, defended himself by saying that if one is qualified, then one can accept that order. And he also said that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas at the age of 24 years old. Of course, we are not on the same level as, in terms of devotion, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he also showed that it can be done at that age. So, but of course, it requires greater effort, because when the senses are strong and the mind still has desires for enjoyment, it becomes very difficult to practice sannyas at an early age, but it can be done. And Srila Prabhupada says that you may not be completely free from sex desire, but if you're controlling it, not giving in to the desire, and you stay fixed in chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, you can practice that order and then ultimately reach perfection. Of course, there has been casualties on the road because people were not able to come up with, although having accepted that order, they weren't able to maintain it. But still, Prabhupada gave it in order to further the preaching of the movement, because he needed sannyasis to preach and travel all over the world. And Prabhupada said, I will give you all support and protection. And Prabhupada did that. Yeah, but he also gave the instructions on how to maintain that. In Grihastha life also, there is a lot of responsibilities there. Everyone should act according to their particular role in the Grihastha life, and then work together as a unit to take care of the responsibilities. The children have responsibilities. The father has a responsibility. The mother has a responsibility. And they all work accordingly. In Western society, things are topsy-turvy. The children leave home very early without any support. And a lot of times they find themselves in a very difficult situation. Women go to the workplace rather than becoming mothers and supporters of the home in order to get financial remunerations, because people say, well, we need money, therefore everyone should work, and this is the only way we can do it. And then the roles are changed. The woman is not playing so much the role of a mother or a wife anymore, but she becomes a co-worker with her husband. And then there is lack on the level of family care, because the mother is the foundation for the support of the entire family. The father gives the direction, and he also gives the financial support, but the mother is the caring agent for the family and also the support for the husband. In brahmachari life, we find that brahmacharis don't strictly follow their vows, and because of that, there's a lot of the persons who are in the brahmachari ashram, at least by name only, but are not following brahmacharya. Because brahmacharya really means complete dedication to the instructions of the spiritual master and no independence for oneself. Everything is done according to the desire of the spiritual master or the designated authority that the spiritual master has allowed his disciple to work under. Otherwise, there's no independence for brahmacharis like that. And the sannyasis, they must travel, they must preach, and they must also be very austere and very strict in their personal activities and not be inclined to sense gratification. Prabhupada would say that if the sannyasi goes to preach and he goes to a grihasta's home and he sees, oh, there's a nice, beautiful lady here. She is the wife of the home. And look how many nice amenities this home has. Gee, if I didn't take sannyas, I could have had all these things too. Prabhupada said if the sannyasi thinks like that, he has already fallen. If he's reflecting about what he gave up, even though he is now in a different situation. So everyone has to follow the order accordingly, and therefore there are rules, regulations. That's why Rupa Goswami talks about the 6 principles that make up the success of practicing Krishna consciousness. And that is Utsahan Nistaya Darya Tata Karma Pravartanam, Asat Sangha, and what is the last one? Sadhu Vritti. So Sadhu Vritti means there are rules and regulations for grihastas, there are rules and regulations for the renounced groups, that is the sannyasis and the brahmacharis, and the vanaprasis also. And those rules and regulations are standard and the foundation by which one executes their spiritual life. And there are slight differences, not slight, sometimes quite clear and distinct differences between those who live in grihastha life, which allow them association with the opposite sex in order to carry on the family, and fulfill certain desires for material happiness, and at the same time practice Krishna consciousness. So for grihasthas, it's a concession, but not for brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyas. There's no concession. They must follow very carefully. And that's why there are two sets of rules and regulations given in the Shastras for these two different categories of spiritual practitioners like that. So one should carefully study these four ashrams and four varnas and understand what are the principles and the activities. And as Srila Prabhupada wanted, one should very strictly follow their ashram and then chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and engage in devotional service with the proper social system in order, and along with the activities of the ashram. Then one can move to the platform of pure devotional service. You have to remember that these four ardhas and four ashrams are material. They're designations for activities, but they are not pure devotional service. But the foundation for developing pure devotional service is in the Varnashram system, like that. And of course, one can do that outside of the Varnashram system. And that's what Prabhupada tried to do. And he did it to some degree, to some success, but he also saw that devotees who were not following their particular swadharma in engaging in devotional service were not staying steady in their devotional service and falling down, although they were chanting and performing spiritual activities. So he therefore, before he left the planet from the year 1974, he began speaking about Daivi Varnashram. In the year 1977, he really emphasized the importance of Daivi Varnashram and wanted to demonstrate that himself by showing how it can be done in our farm communities. But unfortunately, because of his health, he wasn't able to demonstrate it. But he actually said this is the success of not only of the Krishna consciousness movement, but of the world in general. He also said that as society, material society, continues to deteriorate, there will be many, many crises in people's life, and people will be without occupation, and there will also be shortages, and people will be scrambling in order to get things in order to live. Therefore, if we have these farm communities set up, and we're practicing this Daivi Varnashram, spiritual Varnashram, people will come to our communities looking for shelter. He said they'll come by the thousands. And then we should be able to be prepared to engage them in Varna. Prabhupada's vision for the world is really inconceivably amazing, you might say. He had a very, clear understanding of the scriptures, and he wanted to apply it in the perfect way in developing Krishna consciousness around the world. Prabhupada was completely fixed in understanding the systems and working to bring it about. So he left, he said 50% of my mission is still incomplete. Therefore, he tried to fill in what I have given you and ultimately establish Varnashram, spiritual Varnashram, Daivi Varnashram, based on these farm communities. Okay, so stop here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for such a wonderful class. Very nice points and a lot of things to think about. Thank you so much. Dear devotees, this is a very important topic, I know. Please, if you have any questions or comments, you can please go ahead. And you can, if you can, please turn on your cameras. That would be nice to see all of you. Yes, Raj Prabhu, you have a question?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Maharaj. Maharaj, these ashrams like brahmachari, brahmacharini, and then grihastha, etc. Many devotees only discover Krishna consciousness at a later stage in life, so they may go straight into grihastha, for example. So how do they make up for the lack of training in brahmachari or brahmacharini ashram whilst they're trying to learn and practice Krishna consciousness in a grihastha ashram?
Well, it is recommended that even though one may enter the grihastha ashram, one should practice at least 2 years of training in the brahmachari ashram for men, and at least 1 year for women, to get the foundation of the mood of renunciation. Because if you go into grihastha life with the idea of enjoyment, then you don't become a grihastha, you become a grihamedi, trying to take advantage of the facilities that are there for sense enjoyment, but beyond what is required. Therefore, training and education in brahmachari life must be there within the society. I know one spiritual master who asked one of his fledgling female disciples that before he would accept her as a disciple, that she should spend 1 year in the ashram, like that. And for men, it's usually 2 years. When people want to get the training, I say join the brahmachari ashram for 2 years. After 2 years, you can decide whether you want to continue in that ashram or you want to move on to the grihastha ashram. So training is because in this age nobody is trained. The samskars, which are the different rites of passage at different levels of life or different stages of life, are no longer being practiced, and therefore no one is going through any stages of purification. All of these samskars are meant to move one from one stage of life to another. This is a designated system also set up by the Supreme Lord himself and applied by the pure devotees. So yeah, so that's a problem. Even though one would like, and you'll see that generally many of the persons who simply jump right into the grihastha ashram, unless they have some sukriti and some what we say training in detachment and renunciation prior to them moving into either in their previous life or in the present life, they find that to maintain that ashram is very difficult. And then what to speak about the influence of the Western society, which therefore grihasthas really need community. That's the purpose of the farm communities, is to set a stable environment for grihasthas to live. And even if it cannot be in the farm communities, there should be community within the social system of the grihasthas, such as grihasthas all living together in one enclave within the society and working together and serving together and getting education on how to educate their children. In other words, children really need community in order to grow, especially in this Western society. We see many of the children, they grow up, they're in their 30s, and they can't even figure out what they want to do in life, nor can they figure out who they're going to marry. It becomes a problem. And so because there's no training, there's no culture of it. Everything, we've compromised many of the spiritual principles in order to fit into the Western scheme, in order to get some employment or some education based on the Western social and political economic arrangements. And therefore, there's somewhat of a mixture of values that are conflicting. And those who are serious find a lot of times they have no time for spiritual life because they have too many material responsibilities. The wife goes to work right after she gets married rather than being setting the stage for household life and preparing for motherhood like that. And so it's become somewhat topsy-turvy because of that. So that's training is there. It's mentioned in the Shastras as being a requirement to free oneself from the tendency for sense gratification by developing a sense of detachment. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Sridevi Mataji or Samida Mataji.
You can see also at one time in our society, we had a higher divorce rate than the secular world. We had more than 70% of our participants in Grihastha life were not able to stay in their married life. They went from situation to situation. It's still very high. It's dropped down from 70% down to a lesser number lately, but it's still very high. Another reason why the percentages drop down is people don't even get married anymore. They simply live together. So Prabhupada has given us everything, but as a society, we might say in a holistic way, we haven't been able to apply it. But Prabhupada gave the formula. These farm communities are the foundation for developing all of the things, education of children, giving everyone an opportunity to play their role within the Grihastha ashram, and plenty of time for spiritual practice, and not sacrificing our life by working for the materialistic society to get a little bit of money, and then having to associate with non-devotees in that environment.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much. Sridevi Mataji or Samida Mataji, anyone has any question?
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for telling us about the 4 ashrams, the 4 varnas, Guru Maharaj. We know very well about the sannyas ashram. We know a little bit less about vanaprastha, but my question is actually about brahmacharis. What are the principles of renunciation for brahmacharis? Because today we see brahmacharis having smartphones, zooming around on motorbikes. One particular temple that I personally know and have lived in, after their morning program, they would get into pants and shirt, jump into their taxis, and go all day to work and make money saying, we are working for the temple. So, what are the rules for brahmacharis that we should understand?
Well, the scripture is given in, let's see, 6th canto, I think it's chapter 1. Go to 6th canto, chapter 1. I think it's verses 13 and 14. This is the scriptural The application of the scriptural teachings are also influenced by the society we live in. Tapasya brahmacharya samena cha damena cha tyaga satu saucha byam yamena niyamena va deha vag buddhijam dhira dhammaja sradaya vinivitaham shiptyanagam mahat api venu gumam ivanala. Okay. Translation. To concentrate the mind, one must observe a life of celibacy and not fall down. One must undergo the austerity of voluntary giving up sense enjoyment. One must control the mind and senses. Give in charity, be truthful, clean, and not follow and regularly chant. Thus, a sober and faithful person knows is temporarily purified and perform which meant. Okay. Here it is. This is the teachings here, so you'll see. Topics is explained in the Smriti as follows. Complete control of the mind and senses, concentrating. Our Krishna conscious movement is teaching how to concentrate the mind of the first class tapas, brahmachari, life of celibacy, has 8 aspects. One should not think of women, speak about sex, like dally with women, look lustfully at women, talk intimately with women, or decide to engage in sexual intercourse, nor one should endeavor for sex life or engage. One should not even think of women or look at them, to say nothing of talking with them. This is called first class brahmachari. And then Prabhupada goes on. If one is a perfect Brahma, he can control the mind and senses, give charity, speak truthfully, and so forth. To begin, however, one must control the tongue in the process of eating. So he goes on to talk about what is the qualifications. If one can control in this way, brahmacharya and other purifying processes will automatically follow. So there is also a book by what's his?
Bhakti Vikas Maharaj.
Vikas Maharaj, thank you. Brahmacharya it's called, like that. So yeah, these are the principles of brahmacharya life. In the year 2008, myself and Paladananda Maharaj got together and we decided to create a program for bringing brahmacharis together. We call it Brahmacharya Retreat. And our first retreat was in San Diego, California, in the temple. The second year, we did it again in San Diego. The third year, we did it in Bhaktivedanta Manor. So we had brahmachari retreats to fortify the whole ashram of brahmachari by bringing brahmacharis together and having classes and various types of workshops based on the principles of living a brahmachari life. So we did it for 3 years. Unfortunately, when we tried to do it the 4th year at Bhaktivedanta Manor, the manor had decided to opt and use that same time that we were to perform weddings. So we would push that of our things for weddings. And then I tried to find a place somewhere else in the world to do it, and I was unsuccessful because it became too expensive for brahmacharis to travel and to go to these other places, which required a lot of finances for them to do it. So we had to leave that program behind. So we made an effort, knowing that brahmacharis needed association. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get a large amount of brahmacharis. The first year was quite successful. The second year, but everything is there in Prabhupada's teaching. Therefore, you see, if you go to India, you'll find that brahmachari life is really ideal in India, in many places. And the brahmacharis are strict. They associate only with other brahmacharis. They live in the ashram of their spiritual master and perform various services. They have cell phones because they need to communicate in order for them to preach, because brahmacharis are also preachers. Yeah. Brahmacharis are students. They have to learn this philosophy, and they also have to be able to preach the philosophy. They're not just systematic workers who take up occupations in order to support the rest of the society. They are educated, just like in Radha Gopinath temple in Mumbai. Every brahmachari there is studying the scriptures, and each one of them gets a chance to give a class like that. So you see some real ideal brahmacharis. I mean, they are on the level of sannyas, many of them. Although they are, and because they're so fixed in the philosophy, although they find themselves traveling and preaching, they're not disturbed by the atmosphere of the social environment. So, and that came about by rigorous training. So yeah, that was there. And other sannyasis have also tried to do it in their groups to some degree, have become somewhat successful. But brahmachari in the age of Kali, with all of the modernization and the lack of facilities that brahmacharis need in order to live, has become a real challenge for the brahmachari ashram. But at least they can follow the basic principles, as mentioned in this verse here. They should. And the first principle is they should know the scriptures and be able to speak the scriptures. And they have to be very obedient to their superiors, temple commanders, spiritual masters, temple presidents, like that. They don't have any independence. Astas a little bit of independence because they require that in order to support their riha.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj. What is the actual age to start the brahmachari ashram, Maharaj? What is the actual age? Yeah, where the boys or girls would start brahmachari?
Well, it's being done in our temples. They usually join the temple and train within the temple environment.
Yeah, I'm asking about the age, Guru Maharaj. What age they'll start?
Prabhupada said that one can take initiation at the age of 12.
Oh.
He said that, but doesn't mean that they have to live in the ashram. But we have examples of some Prabhupada disciples who joined the ashram when they were 15, 16, like that. But the training should be there from birth. If without the training from birth, then you have to somehow work hard to untrain them with all the bad habits they picked up by living in the Western secular environment. Brahmachari ultimately is sheltered life. And so to do it in the West, there is an added challenge faced by their upbringing and the present social political environment. But it can be done if we set up these temples and then have brahmacharis train in the temples like that. They should work underneath the guidance of the spiritual master first, many years, and then if they become qualified, they can also do preaching work.
Mm. I
But
think
what we see now is the preachers who are brahmacharis are generally people from India who've been trained in that environment, in that culture, in that ashram, and then they're coming to the West, and they're not becoming polluted by the association of that atmosphere, because they have been trained nicely in their Krishna conscious practice. So that training is incumbent if you really wanted to make true brahmacharis, real brahmacharis.
Yes, Maharaj. Krishna House is the one who I think it's the program where these boys and girls are getting trained. I think Krishna House is.
Yeah, and that's an attempt. It's a loose form of the same thing, but seems to be working quite nicely.
Yeah.
It takes into account people's previous lifestyle and allows them to enter into this environment and slowly get the training. When we had developed it in the West with Srila Prabhupada, devotees came completely into the new lifestyle without so much training. The training wasn't there. The environment was the atmosphere, the temple was there, and the training came, but many didn't get sufficient training or education. And there has to be a system where there's evaluation, because many who enter into the brahmachari ashram were forced to stay brahmachari, even though the inclination was towards the grihastha ashram. And how the transition was done wasn't done through education and evaluation. It was done because people could not make it in brahmachari ashram. But to enter grihastha ashram as a fallout for brahmachari ashram means you're going to have the same problem in grihastha ashram. If you say I'm unsuccessful in brahmachari life, then I'll be successful in grihastha life. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be like that, unless there is that previous training is there. And we see that people who entered into the grihastha ashram, they either were too renounced or too much inclined to sense gratification, either one. Sometimes brahmacharis who wanted to get married for whatever reason came into grihastha ashram, but didn't know how to deal in that ashram, and then they maintained a strict sense of renunciation in that ashram. And it didn't work in order to build family life under the rules and principles of grihastha life. And then you have the other side where they enter in it and then they think, now it's time to enjoy. Now I have the facility for enjoyment.
Yeah, it's very tough to balance all these things, Maharaj. Yeah.
We have Parijati here today.
Yeah.
She can speak a little bit about brahmachari life. I know for sure.
Parijata.
Her husband was an ideal brahmachari and then he moved into grihastha life. Now he's an ideal grihastha. So
Okay. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you. Please forgive me, my vocal cords are a bit down. The loudspeaker is not working. So forgive me if I'm not clear or audible enough. Regarding, well, I can only tell you what he told me. So he joined ashram in a very, what do you say? He was going through a lot in his life. And there was one crisis after another, and dealing with a personal failed relationship, difficult family to deal with, a difficult unit head who was expecting him to kill cancer patients in the 3rd stage. So he renounced everything and he was too attached to Krishna because that was a difficult time to, deal with the material world, and it was not working out for him. So Maharaj, please excuse me. 1 second. 1 second. I'm sorry, Maharaj. Somebody was here to fix the stuff. So, so the reason behind joining the ashram was not just this. There have been precursors for the same. From his childhood, he has been too attached to Lord Krishna, to God. So the family life, they were not so happy about the spiritual life. And then he moved to Mumbai, and that turned out to be the turning point. So I think he found his solace in Krishna. He wanted to serve and do some devotional service. But I think things were fine as long as they were getting company of Radhanath Swami, his Guru Maharaj. Then Maharaj had to go to various places to preach. And he was a sannyasi, he had to serve and he had to travel and preach. So I think he wanted to serve more, and he was not getting much seva. He wanted to write. He wanted to write books about Krishna. He wanted to preach more, do more service. So I think it has been building up for a few years. So, and this natural instinct to be, this maternal instinct has always been there in him. So with the, I think there came a time when he realized, okay, maybe I can do more service when I'm out there in the society in a different ashram. So I think he took permission from Radha Maharaj, and Maharaj was like, he happily gave him the consent that if you think that you can serve better by being a grihastha, then go for it. So I think this was the turning point, and he entered into grihastha ashram. Of course, there were challenges. It was not easy. He was still living in his brahmachari mode because he spent about 10 years, about a decade in ashram. So he was like lagging behind in so many things, the worldly things. So it was not easy, and I had to be really patient. His family had to be very patient. But I think it's more about the cooperation. You have to be patient. You have to be more understanding, and just give other person the time. So he understood. He took time to understand me. I took time to understand him. But we have a common goal. That was Krishna. And we had common goals in Grihasthashram that if we have progeny in future, if we have kids in future, we don't want them to be like Karmi children. We want to give them a Krishna conscious environment. That's what we strive to do. And there were limitless opportunities to do seva in Grihasthashram. Of course, as brahmachari, you have that environment, and his training actually played a bigger role, a major role in trying to make things work. The very important thing was Radhanath Maharaj's lecture. At the time when we were getting married, he gave a marriage lecture, and we have had our ups and downs, we have had our challenges, but we kept in mind what he said to us, that this is a person, this is Gopinath's child, this is Gopinath's son, Prashansa, and he is being entrusted in your care. Any abuse, any trouble caused by you to him will mean direct offense towards Lord Radha Gopinath, to Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. And he said the same thing to Murari Gupta Prabhu as well. See, I was not his disciple, but in some cases he would take my side. So he would talk about my perspective. So Guru Maharaj also played a very important role in that. And his lecture, his words, the training in ashram, I think it actually helped us a lot in making things work. And of course, there were challenges. And the reason how we overcame those challenges were only because he was trained in the ashram. We have had our ups and downs, Maharaj. You know them really well. And it takes great amount of patience. And I know this family since my childhood. He went through tremendous transformation during the ashram years. He developed patience. He developed non-judgmental attitude. He developed a lot of spiritual love. and a lot of good things. And I think that helped me, that helped my children, that's helping my family, that's helping his family, that's helping the society. And he's the only person and only doctor in the entire town who doesn't take any cuts. You know, we have cuts and incentives. When we refer a patient to a bigger hospital, they give you something. They give you a portion or a part of the earning that they get from the patient. So my husband, I can proudly say, he is the only doctor who takes no cuts, who takes no incentives, and who doesn't take the black money from anyone. So as Grihastas, Maharaj, we are trying to preach to other Grihastas. We try to help other Grihastas, cooperate with each other well, whatever we can do. We're also helping a lot of children. We are trying to help a lot of people in jails. And we're trying to help brahmacharis as well. Even those who are in transition period, those who are trying to, a lot of them have changed ashram over the years. So most of them, they come and they talk to us how to make things work. So whatever little knowledge and experience that we have, we share it with them. But I think it's okay because this is what Radhanath Maharaj says. Now you should not judge. This brahmachari person is going from one room to another room, provided you live in a Krishna conscious environment, you create Krishna conscious environment, and if Krishna is in the center. So I think Murari Gupta Prabhu's biggest success was his training in the ashram, Guru Maharaj, his lectures, and the God family who gave him so much of love, the scriptures. I don't think his own family has much part to play in what he is now. But I think we gave about 100% credit to the ashram training and to Radhanath Maharaj for that. So this is what my experience has been as a wife, as a mother, as his Krishna conscious spouse, that he has always taken care of me. And there have been times when there's difficulty in understanding what we are like, where I'm coming from. He's not able to understand, but we give each other some time. But he's a great father, a great husband, a very patient listener. And I have developed patience. I've developed a lot of good things by being in his company. And that's about it, Maharaj. And I'm so grateful to Krishna. I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful for this matchmaking. I'm grateful to Radhanath Maharaj. And of course, to Lord Krishna for finding this match and why we got married and all that. Everything. I think this was all arranged by Lord Krishna. So thanks to him. So it's not so difficult, but it's not so easy as well. All it takes is some consideration for your spouse, some level of patience, and love. That's the most important thing. The compassion, love, and Krishna. That's all. That's
Thank
what
you.
my experience has been.
There you have it. As Parijata emphasized, the training in brahmachari was the foundation for developing the character and the understanding by which to make that transition. So that was the essence of what she said.
Thank you, Mataji, for sharing that. Yeah.
And so there's an example of how that training was fundamental in developing a successful grihastha life. So there's your answer, Raj. There's an example.
Yeah. Silpesh Prabhu, you have a question. Maharaj, is it okay if you take one more question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. I feel a little perplexed from today's class. In that it's like, I feel a little bit perplexed in today's class. That it seems that in Grihastha life, everything seems to be against us. So I just wanted to ask, maybe you could give us some hope and blessings that, we can make it in this journey in Krishna consciousness, even though everything seems against us in this world today.
If you, and the scriptures say that anyone from any background can become fully Krishna conscious if they adhere strictly to the process of devotional service given by the spiritual master. In the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukadev Goswami mentions Kiratuhunam Palinda Pukusaram Bira Sambhava Avaya Kasyara Yene Cha Papa Upasrayasrayam Prabhave Vishnave Namaha. It's a beautiful verse. It says that he mentions the different low-class cultures around the world who are below the Varnashram system. Even they can become fully Krishna conscious if they take shelter of the devotees of the Lord, which means if they take shelter of the process. So everyone has that opportunity. You might say there might be more challenges and more difficulties depending on from where you're coming from to where you're going. But still, devotional service is so powerful that anyone can make it if they seriously and steadily apply themselves to the process of devotional service, beginning with chanting the holy names of the Lord. So yeah, whatever baggage we're carrying into our spiritual life, that can gradually be reduced by seriously applying. So one has to see, am I making progress or not? Am I becoming more inclined to Krishna, devotional service, the association of devotees? Or am I still looking towards the material energy for satisfaction, fulfillment, and happiness? That's an indication of one's advancement in spiritual life. But the process is powerful because it is the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. It's non-different than Srimati Radharani. It is the highest form of spiritual purification. It's the most direct, and because of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's compassionate nature, he has made the process even easier. He's taken away from a lot of the restrictions that were there due to the Vedic culture, system of education, and requirements. And he's allowed anyone and everyone to come to the highest stage simply by the process of Harinam Sankirtan, chanting the holy name. That means not only japa, but kirtan. Just to perform japa, your process will be very slow. You have to engage in kirtan and japa, both of these things. The kirtan is actually the yuga dharma in this age. And japa is also necessary for individual culture, meditation, purification. So both of these, and then of course, sadhu sangha, in the association of devotees. Papa said, one who does not take the association of devotees will not be able to make progress in Krishna consciousness. So these are the requirements. If you just simply apply yourself to the requirements according to the instructions, the general requirements are there for everyone. Specifically, requirements come by inquiring from one spiritual master on the application of the general requirements in the day-to-day life. And also taking shelter of the temple and performing, going to the programs, going to the different festivals throughout the year, Janmashtami, Gaur Purnima, all of the different appearances of the Lord and his incarnations. All of these things will solidify and purify our consciousness. So the process works. It's very powerful. Material energy is simply a shadow reflection of reality. It has no effect, but because it's so long-term in our consciousness due to the association life after life, we become so conditioned that it seems to be such a great obstacle in our spiritual life. And still our tendency is to think of spiritual activities in a material way. That's all due to association with matter. But then if we read the books, hear the lectures, get clarifications based on what we hear and try to understand and learn the principle of application by the spiritual master, then we can make rapid progress in devotional service.
Thank you, Maharaj. That's really helped, and it's helped clear my doubts. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a very powerful process. This is coming directly from the spiritual world. It's not a man-made, manufactured process by some yogis who got some ideas. This is coming directly from the Supreme Lord himself, this process.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, can you tell me the verse number you quoted in the beginning of the answer from second canto?
Yeah, it's second canto, I believe. Let me see. Look it up. I think it's second canto, second chapter, verse number 9, 229. I think it's, try that one.
Yes, Maharaj.
Kirata is the first word. Kirata Hunan.
It's not the please.
You're looking for it?
Yes, yes. Maharaj.
I think it's 229. Sri Devi's fast. Maybe she can find it.
It says 2418.
418.
2418.
418. Okay,
One
I'm sorry.
second. I'm sharing the screen.
Okay, there it is. 2418. Mm-hmm. Kirata. Yeah.
Is it the verse, Maharaj?
Kirata Hunan Drupal Pukasa Ambira Sumba Yavana Kasharya Yene Chapapa Yad Upasraya Sraya Sudanti Tasma Prabha Vishnave Namaha. Girata Huna Andhra Palinda Pukasa Ambira Subhav Yad, members of the Kashira and even others addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord due to his being the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisance. Prabhupada would quote this often. These people, these different tribes that are mentioned here, and you can see there's a description of each of the tribes. They're below the Varnashram system. They can even become Krishna conscious if they take shelter of the process of devotional service. You can read about these different tribes here mentioned.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
And then Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita also says, what is that verse? That women, Sudras, and Vaishyas, even they can attain to the highest perfection if they engage in devotional service. What was that? Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter.
1032, I think, Guru Maharaj. 1032, if I'm not mistaken, or 36, something like that.
I thought it was the 7th chapter, but maybe.
Triyo Vaishyas Tata Shudras, right?
Yeah. Sriyo Vaishyas Tata Susaryepi Yanti Param Gatim.
One second, Maharaj. I'm trying to find.
Sorry, it's 9. You're right.
9th chapter?
Yeah, 932.
932. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Maharaj.
So there's no disqualification, no disqualification. Those who take shelter of me, be they lower birth, women, Vaishyas, Sudras, can attain the supreme destination. So again, doesn't matter what birth you take or what material designation you find yourself living under. If they take shelter of devotional service, they can become purified and become fully Krishna conscious.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much. Dear devotees, any more questions or comments before we end the call?
If I may humbly request little clarification on Vanaprastha Ashram, Maharaj. You did mention yesterday that it's not so well defined. So where can we read more about Vanaprastha Ashram?
Well, there are statements in the scriptures, but again, those indications and activities don't apply in Western countries, nor even in India, even today. Vanaprastha simply means at one point one leaves household life. But actually, Bhakti Siddhanta started to, he gave a system of transition, which he broke the sannyas order into 4 categories: Kutichak, Bahudak, Parivajakacharya, and Paramahansa. And so then Prabhupada describes it, how one gradually leaves family life and moves away into other activities. For the first stage, Kutichak, they're still connected with the family, but they don't live with the family. It seems to have a cultural consideration based on the environment of simple life and not modern life with all the apartment buildings and all of these things. So I was at a program years ago on what is Vanaprastha in ISKCON, and many of the senior devotees came to speak. And so the conclusion was that actually, which still needs to be defined in our society. And it can be defined by those who are in grihastha life, who have made a successful, who have become successful in grihastha life, and they should be persons who contribute to putting together a written formula that would be applicable to devotees in our modern day ISKCON society. But what Prabhupada said is that generally they leave home and the wife goes to a holy place and stays there, and the men can travel from place to place and then eventually take sannyas. So that's just a general statement, but doesn't cover all of the aspects that are required in making the transition from grihastha life to retired life. It just doesn't fit into the Western culture the way it's defined in the scriptures. It needs to be redefined for the Western culture.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much. Dear devotees, any more questions or comments? Hare Krishna. Yes, Maharaj, I don't see any questions or comments. I think we can end the call here. We are already 1.5 hours into the call. Thank you all for participating. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Maharaj, for your time and association. Such a wonderful class and nice discussion. Tomorrow's class is with Bhakti Sangha Charlotte devotees, and the verse number is 7th canto, 3rd chapter, verse number 19. 1 second, Maharaj.
Verse what?
1 second, Maharaj. 7th canto, 3rd chapter, verse number 19. 7:3:19.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, it is like it is 20 minutes later for our regular time, from our regular time, 5:50 p.m. IST.
Okay. That's tomorrow's class.
Yes. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you so much, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, His Holiness Chandramauli Swami Maharaj ki jai. Thank you so much, dear devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Maharaj.